Well, good afternoon, family. This is Kevin Binion, host of Under the Influence, a fresh perspective on leadership. And I am very glad to be here with you today on this very last Monday in the month of April. How time has flown. Can you believe it that we are in May already? Well, we're very thankful for allowing us to be able to see so much of this new year so fast. And we are very excited about our podcast tonight. We're very excited about our special guest, Dr. Demetrius Ford. So before we get into our broadcast, we're waiting for Dr. Ford to join us. We just want to thank you all for following us. And you may look at us on the Binion Consulting Group page, Facebook, also YouTube, Twitch, and also on LinkedIn. We're very, very glad to have all of you joining with us tonight as we talk about leadership. And we've had some great guests over the last couple of weeks. Marcel Copeland, Sharon Castillo, and of course, Dr. Demetrius Ford is going to be joining us tonight. And as soon as we get him on, we'll have him talk a little bit about himself and what he does and our show tonight. And we've got some great guests lined up for you for the month of May. So we don't want you to miss any of those kinds of things. So we're really, really excited. And leadership is what we discuss here on Under the Influence. We talk about leadership from a fresh perspective. We talk about leadership and how it affects all of our communities, leadership, how it affects our society, leadership, how it affects all of us. And so we are very passionate about that. And we want to make sure that everyone understands that leadership is important. It's important to our community. It's important to our society. It's important to every aspect of business. We're going to talk about that tonight with Dr. Ford. And again, we're just waiting for him to come into the studio, and we will begin our broadcast tonight. For those of you who are new to the broadcast, we welcome you. And we every Monday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, we are here podcasting and discussing those various topics. It's important that we learn about leadership. It's important that we learn what it is. It's important that we learn who really is a leader and who is not a leader. And so we're very passionate about that topic, and we're glad to have so many leaders on the broadcast. Last week, Mrs. Sharon Castillo from the Fruitful Training Group in Dallas, Texas, talked to us a great deal and was very, very passionate about leadership from a woman's perspective. Prior to that, the last couple of weeks, we had Marcel Copeland, who is the owner of the Copeland Corporation, talk to us about millennial leadership. And we're going to talk with some other leaders in our community and in business and in ministry. We're going to talk about some ministry leaders that are very, very important to our communities. So we're very glad to be able to bring this information to you so that we can share leadership and what it is all about. All of us are influencers. All of us are important to leadership in our communities, and everyone has someone that they lead. Everyone has someone that they can influence, and we are influencers in every possibility. You might not think that you're an influencer, but you are. And one of the workshops that I teach on a regular basis is called Leading Without Influence. You don't necessarily have to have a title. You don't necessarily have to have a great position in order to lead with influence. Just your very presence in the room, just your very presence in the organization, just your very presence can determine how people are influenced, because people are always watching you and people are always looking at you. So we lead with influence, and we know that influence is the big word right now. It's the buzzword. We have many individuals who are what they call social media influencers, because these individuals have hundreds of thousands, some even millions of followers on social media, and people follow them on a regular basis. And they follow them looking for information, thoughts, and ideas that influence their lives and influence their direction, influence the choices that they make. And influence can be good and influence can be not so good. But it's very important that we understand the level of influence that we have. And we're all influencers. If you're a parent, you're an influencer. If you are a young adult or a teenager, you are an influencer. If you are just a neighbor in your community, you are an influencer. You influence everyone. Sometimes by the things that you say, sometimes it's by the things that you do. And so we want you to remember how important that you are as an influencer. And not only are you an influencer, you are an influencer just by your very attitude, your nature, all of the things that you do, the choices that you make, the people that you allow to come into your space, into your presence. All of those individuals you influence. You influence them, even though you might not know that you are an influencer. So it's important that you realize how important your influence is. And everyone has something that they can influence. Everyone has something that they can influence. One of the greatest stories that I tell individual is when I was really young and I was going to play a Little League baseball game. And playing that baseball game, I was waiting for one of the players to come out of his house. And I was using some language that was not appropriate. And his father came to the door and said, if that's the kind of language that you use, then I don't want my son playing with you. You know, I was about 10 or 11 years old. And that really bothered me, because for the first time I realized that something that I said or done had caused a negative impression on someone. So when you think about your role as an influencer, you got to think about the impressions that you're leaving on other individuals. So we're going to get started with our podcast tonight, and thank you all for again joining us. And I have my friend, Dr. Demetrius Ford here, and Mr. Ford, he is here in the room, and good to see you, sir. You look good. You look well. All is well with you.
My pleasure to be here, my brother.
The pleasure is mine, and so glad to have you all joining us tonight. Dr. Ford, before we get started in the podcast, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your practice, and then we'll get right into it. So again, thank you very much for joining Under the Influence tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Demetrius Ford.
Yes, good evening. I'm Dr. Ford, the president of the Association of Black Psychologists here in the Metro Detroit chapter. And I'm a clinical forensic neuroscientist. I also had a stint with the prosecutor's office. I have a Juris Doctorate of Law as well. And so I like to intersect the various multidisciplines. And so there's more we can talk about myself, but I'm really interested in you and the great work that you're doing as well. And it's my pleasure to be here.
Intersect the disciplines. That is some high level language right there, my brother. And so we're going to do a lot of that tonight. But thank you very much for joining us, sir. And your reputation speaks for itself and precedes you. And we're so proud of you for all of the credentials that you have and all that you have contributed to the psychiatric and psychological community. We want to talk tonight about we want to talk about leadership tonight, and we want to talk about how, and feel free to speak freely, openly, give your opinions, your thoughts, your professional background, expertise. But we want to talk about leadership and how leaders are affected mentally as far as their leadership decisions and their choices go. We know that people who are in leadership have a great deal of responsibility. And how does that, let's just start off with this question. When leaders are under a great deal of responsibility and they have a great assignment, how does the mental anguish, how does that affect them as leaders?
Yes, and mental anguish can affect in many different ways, as we know that the suicide rates are tremendous, especially considering the pandemic, which is now a mandemic and an epidemic. But we all are leaders in one form or fashion. And I think one thing is that trait that a leader should have is courage, because we're living in some different times, and the courage is a quality of spirit that enabled us to act in the midst of danger without showing fear.
So leaders have to have courage. How do they apply that? And I like that word, courage. How do they apply courage to helping them to be more effective in their leadership and not deal or not succumb to a lot of the stress that comes with leadership? How does courage help them?
Courage is based upon faith and belief that the outcome is going to be positive, even when when you're uncertain. Even if you look at Ukraine, the president of Ukraine is exemplifying courage when he doesn't know whether Russia is going to unleash a tactical nuclear weapon or where they're going to release the next bomb. But he has courage, and that courage has motivated those around him. And it looks like, as far as boots on the ground, that they're winning much of the war. In fact, there's more casualties in Russia than it is from Ukraine. So we all are leaders from somewhere, some in one aspect. Even if you're just a child and at your school, and you could be a leader of your class or your sports team. So we're all leaders, but people usually follow us. But one thing about leadership is that we cannot lead where we don't go, and we cannot tell what we don't know. So preparation for leadership is fellowship. So we have to follow great leaders in order to become a great leader.
So you talked about the preparation of leadership, and that's a very good point that you're making now. What can a person do to prepare them for leadership? Because we know that as we look in our society right now, we see a lot of questionable examples of leadership. I ask myself this question all the time: how did you get in that position of responsibility? What kind of preparation do people need to take when they are in a leadership, or when they're even pursuing a leadership position? What kind of preparation is necessary?
Humbleness and meekness. For he that is a servant shall be chief, and he that is chief shall be servant. The greatest leader that is respected and recognized is that leader that is humble, and that leader that's willing to work. If you look at the kings during the medieval time went to war. All the kings. That means that all the presidents today will have to go to war. So the one who is the servant, the one who's have boots on the ground, that's preparation for leadership, is being willing to get down and do the hard work. Because in order to be a leader, you have to understand the people that you're leading. If you've never been in their shoes and walked with them and what they're going through, then you can't identify with that culture or that group or that people that you're leading.
You talked about identifying with the people that you lead. What does that look
All right.
like?
All right. Well, let's take an example of what's happening in Grand Rapids with the shooting of our brother in the back of the head. Once an officer like Homer Young had a policy of being a resident of the city to be a police officer. I mean, mayors have to be a resident of the city, city of council, but police officers don't. And many who don't have any contact or any culture, any identification with that environment, don't respect that environment or understand or appreciate. Every eye closed is not sleep. And so because of that, we find that many of those who are in leadership with respect to the police and in other areas, they find themselves not serving the people that they should serve, because they don't understand what the people need. And so, look, I've lost my good brother. So I guess I'm here lecturing to the audience. So yeah, I think leadership, the greatest thing about leadership is that we can't always prepare for it. You don't never know when it's coming, and so we have to be ready, because because preparation, becoming a leader is being prepared to be a leader, because people are looking for leaders, but leaders need to have a good character. Like for instance, if you want to be a leader of a business, you should have a good financial record, because the business is going to be built based upon your credibility. If it's a business that's struggling, and based upon your credibility in terms of having a reasonable credit report, or having a decent clean record, that business will be able to move and grow. But if a person is not prepared, then that person is not in a position to take that business or whatever it might be to a next level. Also, as I indicated earlier, that we cannot tell what we don't know, we can't lead where we don't go. Depending on what we want to lead or what we're called to lead, we should be prepared in that area to lead. Let's take, for instance, Donald Trump had no preparation for presidency. Look at the result. 2 impeachments, a coup d'etat, and more racial injustice, hostility. The economy lost 20 million jobs. I mean, I can go on and on, because people wanted a leader, but we need the people to select people who don't want to be leaders, because people who have the character and not necessarily looking for power, but looking to serve. Leaders are often found in servants. Let's take a look at the disciples. All the disciples were common people. They were people who were fishermen. They were people who were carpenters. They weren't big shots, big in the front, shut up behind. They weren't from the Sanhedrin Council. They were common people that became, the apostles. Yet, if you want to be a leader, you got to be willing to die. Because you're not willing to die, you're not worthy to lead. Because a leader is a person who must go first. Not like the Civil War, when they put all the people who weren't, leaders in the front of the line to die. But a leader must be willing to go first and to deal with the challenges that's in front of them.
You mentioned character, Dr. Ford, and I think that's something very important about leadership. And actually, I just had that conversation with somebody today. You mentioned that somebody who is in a leadership position has to be willing to die. And I was talking with someone earlier today about that very fact, that unless you're willing to die to yourself, you'll never be effective as a leader, nor will you even have the respect that is required of somebody's leadership. And I want to talk to you about that. Based on your opinion and what you see in your field, how important is it for people to be respected in leadership? You're a person who is well respected. How important is that respect?
It's very important, because you're going to fight for them, because people who respect you, typically if they feel you're going to fight for them. Let's take, for instance, the pandemic money. There's a lot of pandemic money that's hung up right now in Congress, but people, some people aren't fighting. So respect, integrity, credibility, being willing to fight. These are leaders. Leaders don't always look like someone who's shabbily clad, or someone who comes from Jerusalem, or from a rich background, who have trust accounts. But a leader could be that person on the street. There are many people who came off the streets and are now leaders, in Congress. The Congresswoman of St. Louis, was homeless, was sexually assaulted. No one would ever, and she's one of the greatest voices now. Bush is the last name, I believe. She's one of the greatest voices in Congress, most assertive voices. And she's fighting. She knows what it means to be hungry, to be homeless. So she's doing a great job fighting, standing up when others have swallowed their tongues, because they want to go along to get along. So if you're leading, I remember who you're fighting for, and who you're leading, and who has the power to take you out of leadership. And that's why I say we don't forget to remember where all your blessings come from. Because leadership, because everything is for a season and a reason, right?
That's true.
And if we want to stay in business, we got to continue to follow the one who sits high and look low, so to speak.
So you mentioned seasons and reasons, and that's really important. Now, I just discovered yesterday, or maybe the day before, that Stacey Abrams is going to run again for governor of Georgia. Yes. Governor of Georgia. So we talked about respect. Now, we know that the first time that she ran, there was a lot of political, interference, I believe. that prevented her from actually getting that election. So she's waited now. She's waited 4 years. She's going after it again. Do you believe that she has the respect from the leadership community in order to become the next governor of Georgia?
Absolutely. And a setback is a setup for a comeback.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on the right side of justice, Martin Luther King said the universe is on the side of justice. But right now, she's still leading. This is a woman from Harvard, has a law degree from Harvard. She has her own business, and she's the leading pioneer for voting rights. So we needed someone to do that with all the attacks on voting that from the Republican petitions. So, when I was in high school, I broke the 400-meter record, and but I could have did a lot more. But I had some back spasms sometimes, so I had to stop running certain races. But I asked my coach is still alive now, Alan Tellis, a Persian. I said, Coach, why didn't you get me some treatment for my back? I could have possibly made it to the Olympics. He said, he told me, and he just said it spontaneously. And I don't even know if he realized what he said. He said, God don't give everything to you at the same time. And for Stacey Abrams, she's done some great things. But there's a season that she's being prepared for a reason, and the conditions that we're dealing with now, with the domestic terrorism, with all these, player haters, what I say, haterade drinkers, of justice and diversity. We need people who are real, who are going to fight for us during this time, the time that you're leading, my brother. We need your voice. We need you to shake up the world. We need you to cry loud and spare none.
Well, I'm trying to do my very best, brother, and I thank you for the encouragement. And believe you me, I'm really trying to do that.
Yes.
And I'm certainly doing a lot of crying. That is the truth.
You're doing a great job.
I'm doing a lot of crying, and I appreciate that. But I want to get back to Stacey for a minute. And now she's obviously doing a great job, and we're going to be praying for her, and hopefully she'll get elected, because I think that she will be exactly what our country needs, not just for the state of Georgia, but for our country. But why is it though that more individuals like Stacey, why don't they get their shot? What keeps them from getting their shot? You and I, we look at it, we read the paper, we see what they do. Obviously, we know that they, can do a great job. We know that they're going to make change. We know that they're going to be influencers. But why is it so difficult for those individuals to get into a leadership position?
Well, you got to look at where we're at, what we're dealing with. I mean, there's a book called 400 Years of Slavery, or 400 Years Holocaust, that we're still living in a culture right now that's more culturally encapsulated than it was, in the 60s, and so we're fighting against that. You look at the gerrymandering, the voting, so you see what's going on. Look at the Capitol, the attempt to insurrection. So we're fighting a war. This is a battle. Rest not against flesh and blood, against principality, power, spiritual wickedness, rulers, darkness, high places. So this is what we're fighting against. And remember, a delay is not a denial. There's a season where she's going to be on high. She's going to shake up the world. So we're all going to be, and that's what we got to prepare for, because we are more than conquerors. We're already victorious. So what we need to do is, wherever we are, we need to raise the dead wherever we're at. If you see someone whose head bowed down, you need to pump them up and connect them to the main line, and get them energized and lift them and build them. Because we are leaders, all of us, where we are. Each one, reach one, teach one. And so her season, she has a season now doing what he has her to do. See, it's not always her will, but his will. See, sometimes we say, well, I ain't no, you're doing his will. He got you here for this reason. Even if you're a parent, parenting, just take off work because of the pandemic, and you're making sure your kids have a good education, so you're home teaching them, and you're saying you have to put your career on hold. Well, there's a season. There's a season, because what you're doing, you're building the future. And you're helping this kid at critical periods and stages in their life. So your time is coming. All you got to do is hold out and be ready when it comes.
Well, you said a mouthful there, Dr. Ford. I'm telling you, you said a mouthful. So let me just try to capture a couple of those thoughts. So seasons, so we have to be prepared for our season, is what I heard you say. We have to be prepared for our season. And then when that season comes, we have to walk in that season. Now, let me ask you this then about seasons in leadership. And we can look, historically, we can look back at some great leaders historically. King, historically, we all believe that King, because he's the first name that came to my mind, but we believe that King was raised for a very particular season, in our history, and he fulfilled his mission. And unfortunately, we didn't anticipate him dying the way that he did, but we do believe that that his mission was accomplished. What do leaders have to do in order to make sure that their mission is accomplished? We know that they've got a season, but we got to finish what we start. We just can't start and then bail out. So how do we feel?
No cross, no crown. We got to realize
that's right. No cross, no crown.
That we are sacrifice. We have to sacrifice ourselves for the sake of others. Right?
Yeah, right.
So a leader is a sacrificial lamb. As it say, must Christ bear the cross along the whole world go free? No, there's a cross for everyone. Mm-hmm. There's a cross for me. So what we have to do is we have to be willing to be that light. Like right now, your light is shining. Your light's shining so bright. I'm trying to, fight it off here. So just let your light shine. That's all you have to do is let your light shine. When you smile, darkness is fleeing. Mm-hmm. See, the enemy, he want to kill, steal, and destroy. But see, you're coming that they may have life more abundant. You helping just one person. Just smile. You'd be surprised who haven't smiled today. And you just give them a little kind word and a joke. You just ran darkness away, because darkness is trying to make that person jump off the Belle Isle Bridge.
Yeah.
And so all you need is a little bit. All it takes is a little dab of dew, a little light. That's why I said let your little light so shine. That's all we got to do. If you let your light shine, then darkness will flee. When darkness flees, then someone says they feel better. And when they feel better, they can do better. Sometimes it's not how much we give them, but just that you give them something, that you recognize them. Just pray for someone. The power is in prayer. Mm-hmm. All you got to do is open your mouth. Mm-hmm. Right?
That's right. And you said it, and that's true. But we need to flip the script, brother. You need to be hosting tonight, and let me be on the other side answering the questions, because you're just giving such great insight. And let me ask you this though. The psychological and psychiatric professions it can be a lot. They can be taxing a lot, and I watch you in your practice, and I see that you have met with some families, men, women. I mean, you've helped a lot of individuals. What are some of the challenges that you find individuals facing? What are some of the primary challenges that people come to you to discuss?
Everything. There's nothing that anything you see here on TV, it's real in people's lives.
Wow.
But one thing is that there's help. Behind every dark cloud is a silver lining. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised how much power there is in hope and goodness, and the fruits of the spirit. There's power, man. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have been raised from the dead from COVID. The doctors have closed the door, say, go to the next person. They on ventilator. Next thing you know, they sitting up, scaring the doctors out of the way.
Yeah.
Because somebody prayed for me. Somebody prayed, And one thing with psychology, and now they're really included in mental health, is spirituality. That's something that has been included, and that's something that's very powerful. We don't give that enough credit for. You have over 1 million deaths during the pandemic thus far, but there's over 2 to 3 million people have been saved.
Yeah.
As a result of good people fighting, people who have encouraged, nurses, people on the front line, ambulance drivers, and doctors and psychologists, and people like yourself willing to help people with a plan to grow their finances when they're feeling oppressed, obsessed, stressed, and depressed. So you got lights, brother, all over the place, man. All you got to do is a little light.
Yeah, just a little
darkness
bit.
Away. So when you're raising the dead, keep raising. We say raise the dead, man. When you put a smile on someone's face, you just raise them from the dead.
And that's a good point, because raising the dead doesn't always mean pulling somebody out of a casket. It can mean somebody who's dead in their mind.
Yes.
It can be somebody who's dead in their heart, dead in their spirit. There's all types of death. And we have to be more, more responsible for helping those people get back to life, because a lot of people are not living. As a matter of fact, I wanted to bring me to my next point. You mentioned at the very beginning, you talked about, suicide. What's driving people? And I've heard more reports about people committing suicide than I believe that I ever have over the last couple of years. Even recently, I just heard about a situation that looked like it was somebody had taken their life And somebody had actually, jumped in the Detroit River, and the Coast Guard was able to save them, before they drowned. But what's driving these individuals now to just give up? Why don't they have hope? You mentioned hope. Why don't people have more hope?
See, because no one has given them hope. No one hired us. The men who stood outside the vineyard said, no one hired us. No job will rob, no skill will kill. So a lot of things that we call suicide is really homicide by failing omission.
Wow.
We're our brother's keeper. When someone needs something, people, look, you'd be surprised. People aren't trying to kill themselves. They're trying to take away the pain they're feeling. And they're feeling pain because they're not homeless. They've been abandoned. All these houses we drive by all these cars, a car lot full of cars. Houses just abandoned. Houses that should have been given to the residents of Detroit, and they're sold to the highest bidder. So, that's why I say, it's our responsibility. These aren't suicide. A lot of things I see are economic or oppressive homicide. Like you're helping people with economics. You'd be surprised. You can pray for a person for 2 hours. As soon as you stop praying, they say, all I needed was $20. And that $20 will put a smile on their face. One of the greatest compliments I ever got was from a white homeless guy on the streets. And I gave him some money, and he said, you are beautiful. And it came from his soul. He meant that. And that's all they need. You would be surprised helping people in the economic finances. All them gold bars you've been sitting by my office. I appreciate that, man. You took me off my heels and put me on my wheels.
You need to clean up some of those gold bars, because every morning when I'm coming to my office, I'm tripping and falling on my face over those gold bars that are in front of your office. So I would appreciate it, but before I get there tomorrow, if you'd have somebody clean all that.
Man, I'm running over, my brother.
Yeah, so I can get in my door. Hey, let me ask you this. Suicide by omission, I think, was the terminology. I've never heard that term before. So when you're in a leadership position, what type of responsibility then do we have? Because I think people look at leadership in different ways. Some people think that leadership is just making decisions and being in meetings and doing plan, that kind of thing. So you mentioned servanthood. So what kind of responsibility do leaders have to serve the people that they see on a regular basis?
See, our responsibility is not just jail, but it's hell. So if you don't lead right, the police or the prosecutor can throw you into jail. But a leader has responsibility to watch for people's souls, not just leaders in the church. Lead wherever God place you as a leader at. And the soul is a person's mind, will, and emotions. So there comes psychology again. That's their mental health. So and then the next part of that verse said, and we must give an account. So we can't just ignore people. We have to continue to watch for their mind, will, and emotions. All people that God has entrusted us to be overseers or to be in leadership responsibility. So our responsibility is really it's a labor of love. But in order to do that, we have to have not just physical health or economic health or psychological health. We have to have spiritual health, because we're living in some times, some perilous times. And the biggest challenge I see with the kids, committing what was called suicide, is that spiritual. People have abandoned the come and go with me to my Father's house. They say there's peace in there. Love, joy, all those good things. So we got to, the door of the church is supposed to be open at all times. We got to get in there and stop by the powerhouse. You don't stop by the gas station, no matter how high gas prices are, you still see a line, don't you?
That's true.
So we're living in some spiritual times. A lot of what's going on now is not just psychological. It's diabolical, and we need to not be afraid. A lot of people are afraid to dap into that because they don't want it to jump on them. But see, those dark spirits are more afraid of us than we are them, because light outshines darkness. So we have to have courage, and leadership requires courage. Through the valleys of the shadow of death. So we have to be prepared. So we have to be true leaders. In order to be able to do that. And then once we are true leaders and prepared, we can walk through those valleys of the shadows of death. And then without fear and evil. We're not truly called for leadership. We're in it, for what we can get out of it instead of what we can give. Then win it for the wrong reason, and it's not going to be successful.
Can you lead without loving?
You can lead, but it'll be a bad leadership, and it'll fall. It'll quickly fall. Because someone said, love lifted me. How can you lift someone if you ain't got love?
Right. So that love is very important. So
You can't live without love.
you cannot live without love. Boy, Dr. Ford, I'm telling you, you're teaching good tonight, as I say so many times. You're really good. And let me ask you this. So leadership is lifting.
Mm.
Lifting can be heavy.
Yes.
So how do we move beyond being comfortable in our leadership and realize that, sometimes, it's going to be a little heavy. How do we move beyond worrying about how much somebody weighs and just focus on the lifting? How do we get beyond that?
I dropped something underneath my desk today, and I got down to get it, and I got down on my knees, and I realized that, wow, my knees are sore. But they're sore because I haven't been down on them enough. Got to get down on those knees. It takes prayer. When you pray, you need to see God's will, not our will. That same prayer we say every day. Our Father out of heaven, thy will be done. See, when you see his will, if it's his will, it's his bill. You see that?
I
So
hear
if we're doing his will, we only can do his will if we're on our knees. If we understand his will, then if he's in it, like they say, when he show up, he'll show out. So that's what we need, to know his will. We can't see the needs of the people, the pains of the people. Jesus felt the sorrow. He was wounded that we might be healed. He died that we might live. We can't see and feel the needs of the people if we're not on our knees constantly in prayer. Disciples fell asleep 3 times. A lot of us are sleepwalking, hypnotized. We're not awake. We don't see. We're not even addressing the issues that are out here. I mean, we're in the beginning parts of World War III. We have a nation where people are being carpet bombed.
Yes.
We're over here complaining about gas prices.
Yeah.
We shouldn't complain about anything. We got a pandemic. We're not even wearing masks. We think we forgot to wear masks, and we're on an uptick. And God is not going to be mocked, according to Galatians 6:7. You can't mock God. He gave you a mask to protect you until the death angel fly over. You better put that mask on.
That is true.
Because when his grace ends, his wrath begins.
That's true. Hey, that brings up another good point there about the, complacency. I think that some people, like you talked about the mask, and I think it was in Florida last month that the governor of Florida was in a school. He was in a junior high school, and he was addressing the students. Some of the students had masks on behind him. This thing was on, local television, and it went national, it went viral. And he chastised those young people for wearing their mask. So what kind of leadership, when you've got leadership that is complacent and doesn't take things seriously, what kind of message are they sending to people?
But see, there was 3 boys. 2 took their mask off. The black brother kept his on. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Even in the midst of danger, when the storms of life are raging, stand by me. God will put his spirit in you and let you know to keep that mask on, because Donald Trump, they spread it, the super spreader spread it. You remember Herman Cain?
Yes.
He was sitting at the front row. A month left, he was there at Trump's Tulsa, convention, whatever it was. Yeah. So these people are looking at money, love money, root of all evil. They don't care about our lives or these kids' lives. So I'm glad to see that black child stood up and kept his mask on. So one thing is, light outshines darkness. See, one thing is, we ought to celebrate the victories.
Yes.
Because we know the victory is ours. See, darkness know that its days are ending. That's why it's getting more agitated, doing more things, see more of these dictators. They know their time is running out.
Yeah.
We only got a few years left before we set up this thing. That's why there's no leadership, man. You haven't seen leadership is coming. We're little leaders, but we're really going to see some leadership where every mountain is going to be, made low and every valley is exalted. So we're going to all be blessed. All the people who are struggling, all those mothers who lost people who lost people, cousin, uncle, brother, due to the pandemic. You're going to see them again if you trust in the Lord. And they trusted in him. You're going to see them again. What you going to do when you see them again? Are you going to stay attracted to what you're looking for about to lay some? Because you're afraid that you look at the ghost?
Yeah.
Or are you going to rejoice and wrap your arms around them? So that's what I'm preparing for. I'm preparing for, we are eternal leaders. Yes. We are eternal leaders. We are leaders in this kingdom. We internal blessings. All that gold you laying down for me, I appreciate it, bro. in the new coming kingdom, man, the streets gonna be gold, man.
That's what it says.
That ain't gonna be worth dust.
That's what it says. That's what it says. That's what it says. Hey, where do you think? Because you said there's new leadership coming.
Yes.
There's a new leadership group that's about to be raised up. What are these leaders, what are they going to look like? Because a lot of people, when they think about leadership, they have this ideal of what a leader looks like. Where are these leaders? What are they going to look like? How should we recognize them so we don't miss them?
Well, you see them already. You walk by them each day. That's why beware how you treat strangers. Many have entertained angels unawares. Mm-hmm. People you look down upon, think of nobody. These are leaders. And these and what is happening is the future. Our appointment with destiny is running fast. Time is moving. Look at what's happening with the global warming. Look at what happened with climate change. You look at all these diseases, the pandemic, like I say, the BA2, the BA1, they got variants, they got cousins. These things are constant. So leaders are going to be people who, like the disciples, people who are rejected, people wouldn't let me. It's not going to be these people who live in corrupt, who won't, help a person out, give a person a hand up, who are for the rich. And it's not going to be the wicked. It's going to be regular, common people like yourself and myself and others. We are those leaders now. That's why we got to continue to have courage and stand up for justice. People who want, like all these mothers who want to open business, they want to do these things, young women who want to do things. Let's help them do that. You're doing that. Their leadership is going to continue. It's not those whose leadership was cut short because of the pandemic. That's coming back. They're going to be leaders. And this time is coming soon. They're going to return. He that liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Or he that believed out this. Do we believe that? Or he that died and believed in me shall live again. So we have to, all these things that we talk about, we got to walk about them. We got to live them. We got to teach them. We got to encourage, motivate people. So that mother you weeping for, that grandmother, that father you weeping for, you're going to see them again. And they're going to be doing some great things. So you keep doing great things. So you can be with them doing great things together.
So you talked earlier about preparing for leadership. Some of these individuals, and I agree with you 100%, these individuals, they walk by us every day. In fact, you talked about the homeless guy. Some of these individuals that we see on the corner, that panhandling, as we would call it. Some of those individuals have tremendous leadership responsibility. How do we get those people, the everyday common person, the person that the world overlooks? How do we get them in their place?
Just go get them. Put a suit on them. Clean them up. Look at people in prison. They got no police officers. Hire these people with felons. Abolish it. Forgive their felons. God forgave you of your sins. Get rid of the felons. We got enough people in America to fill up all these jobs. We don't have a lack of jobs. We have a lack of people with faith enough to give people opportunity. People who will work. People are willing to work. Just give them opportunity. My dad first came here to Detroit. The guy got in line for a job. The guy said, "You ain't got no experience." My dad said, "Experience is the greatest teacher. Give me experience, and I'll have it." That's what we got to do. Jesus gave us experience. He told those in the vineyard, "Go in there and work." He didn't say whether you got a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, whether you got skilled, trained, journeyman. He just said, "Go in there and work. Once I'm right, I'll pay you when I come."
Wow, that's great. That's a great lesson. So so let's just go get them.
Get them. They're right there in front of you.
Go get them. Go get them.
You're looking at, give them a chance. Give them opportunity.
Yeah.
Jesus said, "You're chosen. You're selected, like you selected me to inherit all of these riches." I appreciate that. I was off my wheels and walking on heels. I was chewing on sticks and eating on bones, and I ran into you. And you took me from the outhouse and put me in the White House.
Oh, brother, I tell you give me too much credit, man of God. I tell you give me too much credit, but it's all right. I appreciate it. But I'm just trying to do what God has put me here to do. That's all I'm trying to do. Why don't we go get them though? What keeps us from going to get them? What is it? Is it pride? Is it arrogance? Is it fear? What you said is very true. We just need to go get them. They're not going to get themselves. They don't even know that they have that ability within them. So they need people like us to go get them. But why won't more of us just go get those people?
The chief of all that is the devil. All of those things you're talking about is rooted in evil. They're all in Proverbs chapter 6, things that God hates: pride, selfishness, lying tongue, all those things, envious of others, jealousy, afraid. The person may have an odor. Give them a shower. Give them some deodorant. Give them some scope. Give them a haircut. Put a suit on them. They look just like you if you clean them up. And they'll work even harder. And they'll appreciate it. So look at Jesus. He was one of the ones, the chief cornerstone was rejected. Come on now. So this is what, just select them. They don't need no qualifications. They don't need no qualifications. People sometimes all they need is hope and an opportunity.
Yeah.
That's all they need.
Hope and an opportunity. Those are two powerful kinfolks right there. Hope and an opportunity. Hey, let me ask you this. There are individuals. You and I, we are brown faced individuals, and a lot of people would look at us and they would say, "Yeah, they're doing all right," but they don't really know, uh, what we had to do in order to get where we are right now. There are a lot of brown faces out there who will make tremendous leaders, but they don't want to put the work in. And it's not that they don't have opportunity, but they don't want to put the work in. How can we motivate them and inspire them to realize, look, you know, you got something great inside of you? How do we motivate them to take the next step?
One of the greatest motivators is money. If you pay a person, I didn't realize that I was working for slavery until I met you or got into the fair wage business. Not a minimum wage, but a fair wage business. And once you pay a person a reasonable amount of their value, they'll work and they'll be dedicated. But when you rob somebody, not paying them what they're supposed to pay, slavery is over. People aren't willing to be slaves anymore. They know what slavery is. But if you really pay someone for what they're willing to do, they'll work. Even wicked people will work because
Yeah.
they're making money. They got more money to be wickeder. So that's what we have to do, man. We have to, increase the wages. $20 is still not enough. $20,000 is only $40,000 a year. With inflation, you can't buy anything with that. So we have to, pay people what they're worth, and then they'll do what they need to do. But, I think that's fair.
So we're talking about being fair. So the billionaires of this world who have all of the money, the Elon Musks, the Michael Dells, the Bill Gates, they got all of the money. Are they distributing the wealth equally to those who don't have it?
You start off talking about suicide. Suicide is highest among the rich. So money can buy laughter, but not happiness. It can buy sex, but not love. And the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
You see, so and plus, what is $1 billion? What profit man to gain the whole world, lose his own soul? See, that soul is what keeps a person happy. That mind, that will, and that emotion. See, Adam didn't even come alive until God breathed the breath of life into his soul. He didn't become a living soul until God breathed the breath of life in him. So these people are dead men walking. These billionaires, and all that money they have, if they liquidated it, it still wouldn't be enough to buy their health. And what is wealth without health? And you can't have health without having God. Right?
And that's right. And health comes in many forms. We're talking about emotional health, mental health, spiritual health. One of the greatest quotes that I ever heard was given to me by Pastor Marvin Winans. It was several years ago. We were in a meeting, and he said, people are not always down and out. Sometimes people are up and out. And I found that so very much to be true, that there are people who have tremendous resources, but mentally they're just not equipped. They just can't because they're emotionally, mentally, spiritually bankrupt, and they just can't handle it. So all of the money in the world is just not satisfying them.
Because they're a robber. Yeah. That money is not for you. See, God don't always bless you with money for you. See, He blessed you with money for someone else. You see what I'm saying? No one needs all that money. He didn't give you that for you. You may have kept it, but if you listen to him, get on those knees, we'll find out that he gave you that for somebody else.
Yeah. So, and again, so I had this conversation with somebody the other day as well. Is that you and I both know that God says in His Word, He said He'll give seed to the sower. So there are people who have a lot of seed, but they're not sowing it. So if you're not sowing seed, then the seed can't bear fruit. So how do we get these individuals that have all these resources? How do we get them to begin to start sowing seeds so we can see more fruitfulness?
Well, everyone doesn't have the gift of understanding. And you and I understand that it's more blessed to give than receive. Now, most people don't understand that. They think it's more blessed to receive than to give. Matter of fact, in Grosse Pointe, I got a reputation for being the greatest giver, the hungry howest in terms of tips.
Okay.
And they said, I said, why? When I said, why are you people so wealthy? He said, somebody said they don't give nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they got, they keep it. They sit on it. It's old money.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I know that the Lord said, he that give it to the poor,
Mm-hmm.
lend it to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
he got windows in heaven, brother. Come on now.
well, that's true, and that's true. And I'm gonna give her a sword like that too. As a matter of fact, somebody blessed me with a gift last week. I was doing a leadership training. Somebody blessed me with a gift, and it was at a church. That's where they were doing the training. And after I left, right outside the church, there was a homeless man, and he was laying on top of the one of those crates trying to get warm, and it just really moved me. And so I got my car, and because the parking lot was a little bit away from where he was, but I got in my car, drove right back around the block, and looked at him, and I gave him the gift that had just been given to me. Gave him all of it, not a part of it. I gave him all of it. That's what we have to do more of, and I know that is just a part of this. But because what I really want, I want us to really look at the issues that people are having. If we don't really begin to start taking inventory of the issues that people are having and stop being so selfish and only thinking about ourselves, as you said earlier, we're never going to really make a dent in a lot of these societal problems that we're seeing. What can we do as leaders in order to raise more awareness to the social issues that people are dealing with?
What Jesus did, he put his boots on the ground. He said, the dead are raised, the blind see, the lame walk, deaf hear. So he did it all. When the disciples tried to keep the kids from coming, he said in, John 14:19, suffer Matthew 19:14, suffer the little children come unto me and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of heaven. So he took the time, and we got to take the time. We got to get off our big high horse, and we have to raise the dead. Raise the dead means we're doing something. The resurrection, about Christ, it's about putting life in people, and we got to get out there to do it. And that's all he did, and we have to do it. We as leaders, it's not about our suits. It's not about our shoes, but the good news. Not about our thread, but what's in our head. It's not about our clothes, but our souls.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That is so very true. Dr. Ford, guess what, brother? Our time is up. Our time is up, man. This is one of the fastest hours on the internet. I'm telling you, it went by so fast. But first of all, I just want to thank you for that wealth of knowledge that you have given us and shared with us today. If individuals want to get in touch with you and utilize your professional services, how can they get in touch with you? Just share with the listening audience how they can get in touch with you. How can they look you up in case they need your services? You are obviously somebody that can be very, very helpful and influential. How can the people get in touch with you?
Dr. JD Ford 1 at gmail.com. DRJD Ford 1 at gmail.com.
All right. So you've heard it from Dr. Demetrius Ford. Dr. Ford, thank you so very much. And one other, just a quick before we go, what do you want to leave with the people before we end this broadcast today? What nugget of wisdom do you want to leave with the people before we tune out today?
Just don't quit. When things go wrong, sometimes they will. When the road you're traveling seems uphill. When funds are low and debts are high, you want to smile, but you have to cry. When things are stressing down a bit, pray if you must, but do not quit. For often the struggle have given up, and she may have won the golden cup. Often the goal is nearer than it seemed to a faint or faltering man. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tents of the clouds of doubt. You never can tell how close you are. You may be near when it seems afar. So don't give up when your heart is hit. It's when things go wrong. You must not quit.
You know what? Let me tell you this. The first time I heard that poem, it was at my junior high school promotion. I was being promoted from the 8th grade. It was the first time I heard that poem. Well, guess what? Throughout the course of my life after that, whenever I was struggling or life was, slapping me in the face, my mother would always quote that poem to me every single time, And so that just you saying that as we approach Mother's Day, you done kind of stirred a little something up in me, because I remember my mother, because she would always quote that poem to me. So thank you so much. Dr. Ford, we appreciate you being on Under the Influence today, and we are certainly going to have you back again. And thank you so very much. And you have a great and awesome day. And thank you so much for your wisdom. God bless you. May you continue to be successful in everything you do. And we will see you again in the near future on Under the Influence. Have a great day and a wonderful evening. God bless you. We'll see you soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard it. Dr. Demetrius Ford tonight. What a great program we've heard today. And I just want to just encourage you all to just remember that leadership is important. You guys are great leaders. You lead in everything you do. You lead by influence. You lead in wisdom. You lead by the people that you touch. Sometimes the people that you are touching, you don't even know that you're touching, because they're not going to tell you. But sometimes it's just the things that you do and say, like Dr. Ford said, sometimes it's just smiling at somebody makes a difference. But whatever you do to make a difference, whatever you do to influence, just remember that it's not always about you, but it's about the people that you touch that are important in the world. So thank you all for looking at our broadcast, our podcast tonight, Under the Influence. Join us again next week. We're going to have another great guest, 7 o'clock Eastern time, right here, Under the Influence. You guys are great. Thank you for being with us tonight. And remember, leaders lead from the front. Have a good evening.